Is the author of, formerly the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Ghost Wars. His new book is called Directorate S. The subtitle is CIA and America's Secret Wars in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Steve, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You have written a brilliant book. A lot of what this book deals with is the SI, or ISI rather, the Inter-Services Intelligence Agency of the Pakistani government. Can you tell us what is the ISI, what is Directorate S, and why should we care?
Well, Directorate S is the covert action arm of the Pakistani intelligence service, and it has supported the Taliban across the years before 9/11, but then to our cost after 2001, when we thought we were partners with the Pakistanis. Directorate S eventually went back into action to tolerate and then facilitate and support the Taliban as they went back to war in Afghanistan against U.S. troops there. So, you know, this is not a mystery to us because ISI and the CIA worked together during the 1980s to run guns and money to Afghan mujahideen who were then fighting the Soviet occupation. So, in a sense, one of the stories of the war we're still in Afghanistan is that ISI and Directorate S kind of ran the same playbook against us that we had worked on with them in an earlier war.
The Trump administration has recently turned essentially against Pakistan, and my understanding is that that's causing Pakistan to reconsider their alignment with the United States and to embrace China, Russia, and Iran. Is that, am I hypersimplifying here? What's going on with this?
No, I think that's directionally correct, as they say. I mean, the Trump administration suspended aid to Pakistan and the president tweeted out some insults to Pakistan. And the idea is to try to put pressure on Pakistan to do what it has so far not done, which is to turn off support for the Taliban, arrest the key leaders who are living in Pakistan. Unfortunately, sanctions like that have a long history of not working in Pakistan. And the biggest thing that's changed is that Pakistan's most important ally, China, has become even stronger than it was, in the 90s. And I think Pakistan's response to this pressure so far is what you say. They're sort of nesting inside their relationship with China. China has protected Pakistan over the years. Pakistan is China's most important ally in the world, you could argue. And so with that protection, I think Pakistan hopes to sort of turn tables on the U.S., maybe draw in Russia, draw in Iran, try to get them aligned against the U.S.'s design in Afghanistan, and that could destabilize the war even further.
And now we have in India a president who is a right-wing nationalist, militarist, used Hinduism used Islam as a whipping boy, essentially, both when he was mayor and when he ran for president. To what extent does this all increase the probability that India and Pakistan, and thus by proxy the United States and China, could end up in a nuclear war? These are both nuclear-armed countries. All four of us are nuclear-armed countries.
Yeah, well, it's certainly dangerous. I think it's important to understand for Pakistan, it's all about India, right? So they use these terrorist groups, these militant groups, as a strategy to try to unbalance India. And India has hard experience with being on the receiving end of Pakistani-sponsored terrorism, particularly the shocking Mumbai attack in 2008 when guys landed on boats from Pakistan with ISI training and support and shot up all these hotels and killed several Americans as well. So the Indians are a little bit cautious. Their view of the future is they've left Pakistan behind. Their economy is growing. They've got an issue with maintaining a balance with China over the next 30 or 40 years, but they've been cautious about not doing the kinds of things that might provoke Pakistan into sending more terrorists into their country. So this has made it difficult, for example, for the United States to draw India into diplomacy to try to fix the Afghan war, because if you draw India in, you're just setting off alarms for Pakistan and encouraging them to, maybe to escalate.
We're now 15 plus years into the war with Afghanistan. I remember Just before it started, the Washington Post running an article that George W. Bush had been offered, that Mullah Omar had offered to arrest bin Laden and turn him over to a third country for trial. Bush said, no thanks, we'd rather bomb the crap out of your country, the second poorest country in the world. Where are we at now with this war in Afghanistan? What has become our rationale for it now that bin Laden is dead? What role did ISI play in all that? And for that matter, what role does ISI Pakistan, Directorate S, play in the ongoing death of American soldiers and civilians in Afghanistan?
Well, the war is pretty much as it's been for the last 10 years. We are actually, at the present, fighting two wars in Afghanistan, one kind of on our own against a little branch of the Islamic State that has sprung up in eastern Afghanistan. We attack them directly. And then with the Afghan security forces, army and police, we are fighting what the generals call an advise and assist war, where we support their primary combat role, but we kind of give them our air force to bomb the enemy when they get into trouble. The war has been stalemated on the ground really for a decade, if you look at the maps of who controls what. And ISI is still in action. There's in August of 2016, supporting the Taliban. And in August of 2016, there was a unmarked white helicopter that went down south of Kabul, and it turned out to have like a Russian pilot and Pakistani citizens and military people in plain clothes aboard. The Taliban surrounded it. They realized, oh, this is ISI. These are our friends. They got the individuals back to Pakistan. Then they blew up the helicopter. And when challenged, isn't this evidence that ISI is still running guns and money to the Taliban? The Pakistanis claimed that the helicopter was on a flight to have some repairs done in Central Asia, which was not the most plausible explanation I've ever heard. So, the problem in the war is that we keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Our generals will admit that this is not a war that has a military solution against the Taliban. And yet we prioritize military action and don't have any other plan that would allow us to reduce our presence there, get out of the way, and maybe even leave the war to the Afghan forces.
In 2005, I interviewed General Stanley McChrystal, and he said, we cannot kill our way out of the war in Afghanistan. Is that what we're still trying to do?
Yes, it is. And, General Petraeus, who followed Stanley McChrystal in top command of the Afghan war, said the same thing. He said, you can't capture and kill your way out of an industrial strength insurgency, and that's what the Taliban represents in Afghanistan today. And yet they didn't recommend or develop a political strategy, a negotiating strategy, a diplomatic strategy that would draw in regional governments as an alternative to military action. And what they would typically say is, well, yes, we recognize that this has to end in a negotiation or through political strategy, but we're not ready for that yet. We need to beat the Taliban up a little bit more, and call us in a couple of years when we've battered them to the negotiating table. Well, that echoes of Vietnam. We're going to bomb them to the negotiating table, and that doesn't have a very good record.
Yeah, in any war, in any place, it's a remarkable book. Directorate S is the book. The CIA and America's Secret Wars in Afghanistan and Pakistan by Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Ghost Wars, Steve Coll. Steve, you've done an extraordinary work with this book. I highly recommend it to everybody. Thank you so much for coming on our program today to talk about it.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Keep up the great work and keep spreading the message. This is important stuff.